Hi, am I glad to see you? I have bread all over the place because today we're going to continue our series on entertaining, and we're going to do it with sandwiches. Now, I know that may sound a little bit strange to you, but sandwiches have been with us a long time, and they're wonderful things if you make them properly. Who invented the sandwich? No. I know you were going to say the Earl of Sandwich. He was not the dude. He did it in, let's see, in about 1750. John Montague, who was the Earl of Sandwich, was an inveterate gambler, and his chef couldn't get him away from the tables. So he brought him pieces of English bread, not my favorite, with a chunk of meat on it. I bet it was cold mutton, and thus the name sandwich. No, he didn't invent it at all. He's given credit for it, and he has the name. But let's think about the history of bread. Who invented bread? That's where the sandwich was invented. When you consider the fact that bread goes back thousands of years before John's Earl of Sandwich, the oldest breads we have, let me show you. For instance, the pocket bread in the old days was simply served, and you bake this on the desert, was simply served like this. You see, you break it in half, then you tear it into an angle, and everything was a sandwich. You see, you picked up, they didn't even use silverware. They ate everything. They ate their olives with a piece of bread. Now, you're going to tell me this is English? It's not at all. And, of course, in our time, you and I can take a piece of pocket bread, which you can find in any good supermarket, and put in a bit of salami and a slice of Swiss cheese, perhaps. Oh, and I have some salad here somewhere. Here we go. And I like to just put the salad right in the sandwich. You see? There you go. That'll do the job. All right? You consider this one of the first sandwiches. Consider also that the Jews invented matzahs on the desert, and after all, the matzah sandwich, which is celebrated at High Holy Days during the Seder, and remember Rabbi Hillel said, put the harosas on top of the radish, on top of the sweet herb, and make another sandwich out of it. That goes back, 4,000 years? So don't give me this Earl of Sandwich trip. Sorry, he's out of business. He's just out of business. Besides, I don't like to see him standing at that table gambling away his money when he should be sitting down with some nice soup or a good sandwich. So let's make some good ones. We have a pocket bread, which makes a colossal sandwich. I don't have room to put all of these out. Or let's go to China. There's an old bread. The northern Chinese, you see, have been making something that we call, silly name, but it's the Chinese pancake. These are beautiful. Peter Lowe's restaurant, just up the street from our studio, made these for me. I don't have the time to make them, but you roll them out double. See how thin they are? And look what you can do. You put in a bit of salami. They eat this kind of thing all the time, not with salami and Swiss cheese, for heaven's sakes, but with all kinds of beautiful meats, and you roll this up, meats and vegetables, and you eat it just like a burrito. You see? Did the Chinese invent the burrito? I think so. Don't tell my other friends. All right, so we have Chinese breads. That's an ancient sandwich. Then we have, of course, the Mexican tortilla. And you can do the same thing. I'm particularly fond, well, that's a sticky one. I put these in a steamer, and they don't want to come apart. There we are. That warms them up in a hurry, you see. I want to put some egg salad in this one and pack it in a lunchbox for one of my boys. Channing would just kill for such a thing. He likes parsley on his, so we'll do it. And we'll roll this up and make a quick, there we are. Make a quick Mexican sandwich. It's not Mexican, we're just using Mexican bread. That's great, unless, of course, you put a wet filling in it, and when you hold it up, everything runs out the bottom. Don't do that, all right? Those are all proper sandwiches. Then we can also go on to lefse, which is made in Norway. And Norwegian lefse, when I was a child, I used to call this Norwegian cardboard. My mother used to bake it from scratch. Now I buy it in a box. But it's just hard as a rock. Well, not quite a rock, but it's like an old cracker, a matzah that's been forgotten about, you see. What you do is to moisten it. Do you have extra sinks in your kitchen so you can do this sort of thing? For heaven's sakes, don't live with one sink. Have sinks at each end of the room. I have 2 in my kitchen and 2 here. My kitchen meaning my home in Tacoma. So that we don't have to fight when we're trying to cook. There, moisten it on both sides. And then you put it under a wet towel. You see how this goes? Put it under a wet towel. And in very short time, cover it up with a wet towel again. In very short time, I have the bottom one here. The thing turns into something that you can actually roll. You see? This is lefse. My grandma Brun used to put butter and sugar. What else she put in there? Butter and sugar and cinnamon. And then roll tons of butter. You know, she was Norsk, you see? And then roll this up, and it makes a heavenly snack for Christmas morning. For me, that's Christmas morning. Lefse. But if you want to play around with meats and roll this up into a jelly roll with meats and cheese, look what you can do with a nice lefse sandwich board. These are, if you'll pardon the expression, Norwegian roll-ups. And you see what I've done here is to roll them up with Swiss cheese. And I don't know what I have in this one. Oh, Swiss cheese, salami, and some cucumber. You see the little cucumber sticks? And these make a marvelous snack. Put this on the board on your big buffet, you see, with a little nice garnish. And you can have a wonderful time with lefse, another old bread from the old world. So I repeat again, the Earl of Sandwich was really not in business when the old girls in the mountains of Norway were cooking this flat bread. Not at all. That's a nice one. Then we can go on to the artists. This is where I go out of business in terms of space. The real artists of sandwich in our time are Danes. I was in Denmark about a year ago, and I could not believe the business people coming to the shops for lunch, and they bought sandwiches. They had no top on them, you see. Look at these. I've got 3 platters of them here for you. These Roquefort cheese, salami, caviar. Aren't these wonderful? Or here's another platter. This one has lox. We have, what is that, herring, and this one is beef tartare with a raw egg in the center. And you buy these in the shop. They use a pancake turner to pick them up and put them on a little satchel for you, and away you go, and just eat and eat and eat. Let's see, where are they going to go? Well, who knows? I'll put them over here for a time, huh? And finally, here's another tray. One of my helpers is very fond of decorating beautifully, and he makes little horns and fills them with eggs. And this is the sort of thing you would see in the Danish markets. Aren't they gorgeous? Now, can you imagine the Earl of Sandwich standing around with a gambling? He has cards in one hand and a chunk of cold mutton on a piece of white bread in the other, and he's having fun. This, incidentally, is on Danish rye. The Rubschlager Bakery here in town, the Rubschlager Bakery here in town did this, and the bread, and it's just wonderful stuff. It has some body to it, you know. You eat something like this, and it actually it's just a piece of support for the Danes. They heap everything on this, but it's wonderful bread. Good Danish rye. All right, now let's go on to some legitimate sandwiches for our time that would be good on your buffet. I'm going to have to move a few things here. Well, isn't it fun? You know, when people come into your house, you want them to go, oh, not, they've seen it all before. You don't want that. You want to do some different things. So I'm going to prepare for you today my favorite sandwich from New Orleans, and it's an oyster loaf. What you do is to, let's see, I'm getting everything hot here. Yes, got several things going at once, as usual. I want to cut up a small sandwich roll. This is exactly how they do it in New Orleans. And if they're really fussy, they'll rip out some of the white. But this bread is so fine. This is from a sourdough bakery. You can buy it in San Francisco, and you can buy it in Chicago, and it's called Baudin, and it's legit. I've eaten tons of this stuff in San Francisco, and I was wonderfully happy to find it here in Chicago. Or you can find a regular Italian roll and use that. Now, we're going to put some tartar sauce. It's right here. Put some tartar sauce on this. There we are, in the sandwich. And then we're going to put some oysters. And I've sauteed the oysters in olive oil. Why fiddle around with a paddle, for heaven's sakes? Olive oil, I breaded them in an egg wash. And an egg wash is just a couple of eggs with a bit of milk stirred in, about 2 eggs and probably a tablespoon of milk. And then you dip them in flour and white cornmeal, little salt and pepper, pan fry them in olive oil so that they're crunchy on the outside, and you have a wonderful gift to give to yourself or to your family. Then we need to put a tomato on this. Now, this is strictly up for grabs, is whether or not you want a tomato on your oyster loaf. And you might want some lettuce. That's how I have them at Felix's Oyster Bar in New Orleans. Oh, Lord, if you're watching in New Orleans, bless your little hearts, all of you. That is the most wonderful eating city. There. This is an oyster loaf. Why do they call it a loaf? I don't know why they call it a loaf, but they do. And it's a wonderful sandwich. Just colossal. There. That's a favorite. Are you ready? Ready for what? Where do they go? Well, it doesn't matter. Then we can go on to another classic that belongs to the people of Philadelphia. And there's a bar just near Independence Hall, the Society Bar. And here is their sandwich. She was very glad to give it to me, and I think you should enjoy it too. First of all, we're going to saute in a bit of olive oil. Remember, keep your pan hot first. Then you put the oil in the pan. Even if you have a good pan like this, this is covered with Silverstone. It's a very heavy French pan. It's cast iron and enamel on the outside, so it'll hold heat, and you can do a lot of cooking at once. A thin aluminum pan, very thin pan, or a thin stainless steel pan will not hold enough heat, and you can't cook this fast. What I want you to do is to throw very thin slices of chopped steak or chopped, or sliced steak or sliced roast beef, you see. And I want it to cook right now. I don't want it to cook tomorrow. I don't want it to dry out on you. So there we are. That's plenty for a big sandwich, huh? And we'll saute that quickly as soon as we can find a wooden paddle here. There we go. It's just about done, you see. I don't want to do too much to this. I can just hear you, oh, Lord, look at the smoke in his kitchen. That's why you need a good fan in your kitchen. Don't ever buy one of these fans that recirculates the smoke through a little bitty cheap filter. It won't work because you're going to stand around and breathe that stuff. Even though you can't see the smoke, the oils remain in the air. So get a fan that blows outside. Very important. All right, that's enough. That's done. Now this pan is so heavy and works so well, it's not going to stop cooking. So you're going to say, well, it's still red. I want it a little rare. But now we'll prepare the sandwich itself. It's also going to go into a broiler. I'm going to use a big loaf. But it's about this is about an 8-inch loaf of good Italian or French. This happens to be the sourdough I was telling you about. And this is going to be for more than one person, obviously. I'm just going to take out some of the center. Good Lord, don't throw that away. Save it and make heavenly breadcrumbs. And now onto our bottom loaf here, we're going to put the sauteed, they call it a steak sandwich, but you know, it's really just good roast beef. That's it. Oh, come on. Isn't that awful? Love it. I can just get it on. I don't think I'm going to get it all in there. Well, maybe so. There we are. Now we're set. We're all right. The old finger routine will have to help. We'll rearrange this so that we can get it on here. There. Now we're going to put some, can you imagine? We're going to put some pizza sauce on this. Is this the one I want? Yes. Pizza sauce or coarse chopped tomato sauce into which you put your own seasoning. But at the Society Bar, they use pizza sauce. Not too much now. Be careful. Then we're going to put some provolone cheese. And that's a sliced, this is a sliced provolone, but that's an Italian smoked cheese. Isn't this wild? This is no snacky poo. You know, this is serious stuff. This goes under a broiler in your oven for, well, for the time that it takes to melt the cheese down. That's what it does. There it is. Whoops. Too close. We don't want to burn the top of the cheese, that's for sure. You know, the best laid plans, oh, never mind. There. That'll be ready in just a minute. Then we're going to top that with some more, with some sauteed onions